Welcome to the Rudick Report. Today is January 3rd, 2023. I wanted to take a brief moment to say thank you to all of you who sent their well wishes to me, and I too wish all of you a very healthy, prosperous new year. You know, so much has taken place over the last year that it's difficult to keep up with the news cycle, but the focus for most people has been the economy. With inflation and its impact on energy, food, and gas prices, along with rising interest rate costs and mass layoffs taking place across the country, Americans are really feeling the pressure. Yet with inflation soaring, the Fed's statements of transitory inflation, and the White House's outright denial of a recession, prices continue to soar with economic activity slowing down to a standstill, and this is all by design. I want to show you that an economic collapse is happening already, and the economic conditions just keep getting worse. So here are a few examples. Existing home sales have now fallen for 10 consecutive months, down 35% year over year. Also, while this is happening, home builder sentiment has dropped for 12 consecutive months, with construction costs rising more than 30% since the beginning of 2022, and the number of single-family permits falling for 9 straight months in a row. All these are massive indicators that a housing market is crashing and will continue to crash. In November, we witnessed the largest decline in retail sales that we have seen all year long. There may be a bump for December, but be prepared for a fall off the cliff moving forward. With all the layoffs taking place, people simply cannot afford frivolous spending. Some of the biggest names on Wall Street started letting workers go, with the latest being Goldman Sachs, who announced they are cutting over 4,000 workers in the United States. And all the while, Goldman is pumping in hundreds of millions of dollars into sustainable investing, or ESG, environmental, social, and governance programs. Recently, the Federal Reserve admitted that the number of actual jobs in the United States has been overstated by over 1 million jobs. So, a couple hundred here, a couple thousand there, no big deal, right? But once you're reporting over 1 million fake jobs, we're talking about market manipulation at this point. The U.S. job cuts continue and are 417% higher this past November than they were during the same time a year ago. A recent Wall Street Journal survey found that approximately 2/3 of all Americans expect the economy to get even worse this year. And a newly released Bloomberg survey discovered that 70% of U.S. economists believe that a recession is coming this year. Most of us know that a recession is already here, but with the definition keep changing, I guess they'll catch on eventually. Inflation continues to spiral wildly out of control, and at this point, a head of lettuce now costs $11 at one grocery store in California. Overall, vegetable prices in the United States are more than 80% higher than they were this time last year. So thanks to a rapidly rising cost of living, 63% of U.S. population is now living paycheck to paycheck. In a desperate attempt to get inflation under control, the Federal Reserve has been dramatically increasing interest rates. Those interest rate hikes are what has caused the housing market to crash, but Fed officials insist that this pain is necessary in order to tame inflation. But meanwhile, our politicians in Washington are getting busy creating more and more inflation and borrowing more and more and spending more at a rate that is absolutely unprecedented in our entire history. Recently, a $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill was rammed through Congress, yet not a single member of Congress read it. The bill is 4,155 pages long. Unfortunately, this absurd spending bill has broad support on both sides of the aisle, which just shows you how broken Washington is. Our system of government has failed time after time, and our politicians continue to spend money on some of the most ridiculous things imaginable. And also, have you noticed that our politicians often prefer to push these types of bills through just before major holidays or in the dead of night when no one's paying attention? No matter who we send to Washington, the story seems to be the same. As long as our politicians are borrowing and spending trillions of dollars that we do not have, Fed officials won't be able to win their war against inflation. The Fed can send interest rates into the stratosphere, but inflation will continue to remain high because our politicians insist on showering the nation with giant mountains of cash. We should be all deeply, deeply offended by what is happening, but most Americans simply do not know enough to care. But once the economic conditions get even worse than they were in 2008 and 2009, the majority of the U.S. population will then take notice, and they will become extremely angry. Unfortunately, we have run out of time to change course. And that means that a tremendous amount of pain is ahead for all of us.